Fire when ready. Go ahead, Damon.
Scott, Bracker Stockshire with Nebraska 24/7 Sports. How did you just feel about how you finished out today, adding the additions that you got to the class?
Yeah, you know, there wasn't as much drama this year as most years in the past because of the early signing day. There weren't as many kids out there. There weren't as many spots at schools. So it was a little less drama than a normal signing day, but there were still some kids that we were waiting on until the end and feel really good about how we finished out.
What was it about Maurice Washington that you liked, and how did you feel you connected with him to give you the advantage in that one?
Coach Fish and Coach HOL did a great job of recruiting him, Coach Beckton too. I think he was the guy that we identified actually in December, and he kind of blew up after the Under Armour game. But our coaches kind of had a head start on that and already had a relationship developed with him. I think it came down to us in Arizona State, and he had a lot of respect for Coach Edwards and everyone down there. But he's going to fit in great. He can do everything that we would ask a running back to do in our system. He's got a little work to do to finish academically, but we're excited to get him here on campus.
Coach Sean Callahan, Husker Online. You guys are going to bring in 45 new guys when you bring the recruits and the scholarship, walk-on guys, everybody. How important was it for you to kind of bring in a big, large group like this right away to kind of start the culture building from the bottom?
Yeah, the one thing, we've been through a transition like this recently, our staff has, and one thing we didn't want to do was make the mistake of bringing in kids that were knee-jerk reactions to filling spots. So we're not bringing anybody in that we don't think can help this football team. A lot of these guys are going to help us. A lot of these guys are going to have a chance to help us early. And there's a lot of guys that have been on this football team and will continue to be that are assets and great players, and we look forward to working with them. But we're also excited about bringing some of the guys that we've recruited that can fit into our system in. So it's going to be a good mix, and now that this is over, we're just looking forward to getting to work with our football team.
Scott, Eric Olson, AP, how taxing and how big of an accomplishment was it to not only prepare a team and coach in a bowl game, and then to also assemble a recruiting class here?
Yeah, it's been a difficult couple of months. It's been exhausting for me, for the coaching staff. We were basically doing two jobs for a while. I really like the early signing period. I think it helps alleviate a lot of the strain of February and a lot of the drama in February. But it's tough on a coaching staff that's transitioning from one spot to another. I think our guys handled it great. We tried to make every decision based on what the right thing was to do, and going back to help the young men at UCF try to win a bowl game was the right thing to do. And it was hard work for us, but it was really rewarding when it worked out the way it did.
Scott, Steve Sipples from the Journal-Star. How do you feel you fared at the positions you identified as needs, defensive back and receiver?
Well, when you're taking over a 4-8 team, there's a lot of needs. And we didn't want to focus on one position or other position. Really, with the short amount of time we had to recruit, we wanted to take the best players we could take. So there might be one or two positions where we took more than we wanted, and a couple other positions we'd like to have another guy to fill out a roster spot. But in general, we feel good about every player that we got. There were some glaring needs. We needed a young quarterback. Our depth and the numbers at receiver and DB were nowhere near the number that we'd like to carry, so we definitely needed to get some guys in the defensive backfield and out wide on offense. We got the guys we wanted for the most part at those positions and feel great about who we got. In years going forward, we'll be able to balance out the roster and get the right numbers at each position based on what we'd like to have. But this year, with a short amount of time, it was just more about getting the best players we could get.
How many rosters, how many guys do you anticipate out on the roster in July and August?
Total number on roster? That's something I'm still working out with Bill Moose. Nebraska's been known for a long time for having a lot of players on the team, a lot of walk-ons on the team. I'd like to get back to that. The best thing Coach Osborne did with all those players was everybody practiced. It wasn't 22 guys practicing and everybody else on a knee holding their helmet. It was 88 guys practicing at the same time. And part of that is what led to the development of players and help walk-ons and young players get better faster and get out on the field and help the team. I think that's an asset that Nebraska can have if we're willing to expand the roster, and that's something I'm working through with Bill Moose.
How many would you like to have?
Ideally, I don't know, 150 or maybe a little bit more, and most teams don't carry that many. I think that Nebraska was about 135 last year, and we're going to see if we can find a way to get more on the
Do
team.
you have the staff manpower to coach 150, 160 guys?
Absolutely. We could do it with 10, and we have an army of people in our office.
So is 20 the high end of walk-ons, or is that kind of the number you want to get every year?
No, I think we wanted to introduce more this year just to get the ball rolling. I want to make sure we have the right guys in the program, the right walk-ons in the program as well, and guys that we feel like can come in here and get in Zach Duvall's program and get with our coaches and develop into players and eventually be on the field and help this football team. That's what's happened at Nebraska in the past, and I'd like to see it happen again.
Scott, Ross Judson from WWT6 in Omaha, NBC. What was your message to the recruits, the walk-ons, to come to Nebraska when they're receiving scholarships from other schools at a lower level? But what was your message to those walk-ons?
Listen, I've coached at an FCS program, a state away, and those are good programs, and it's a lot of fun to play football there. But I want the day to come back when Nebraska kids that grow up here and come to this stadium, watch the football team, are dying to come here and play, and I want to give them the opportunity to play. And I think there's a lot of guys that we're getting in this walk-on class that probably could have played at Division II level or the 1AA level, and they chose to be here. When you get those kind of kids, I have no doubt that some of those kids and probably a number of those kids will be good enough to earn scholarships here, and we're going to honor them if they do, and that's going to help us get more walk-ons in the future.
Scott, did you enlist Coach Osborne to help you recruit during this recruiting period?
No, I asked for his advice, but we have to be careful with rules if he's helping us actually recruit and evaluate tape. I did lean on him for some advice on some things, and one thing he shared with me is when he was here, they did a study, and about 60% of Nebraska kids that they brought into the program ended up starting and playing at University of Nebraska, and the number was way lower for out-of-state kids. So going forward, we're going to give every Nebraska kid that is good enough to play here an opportunity to do it.
Scott, you talked about the need to improve physical play, toughness in the program. How much of that conversation applies to the quarterback position?
The last three quarterbacks I've coached have been tough. Mackenzie Milton's one of the toughest kids I've been around. Marcus, Vernon Adams. Usually a team takes on the qualities of its leaders, whether it's the coaches or a leader on the field. I want a tough quarterback too. Coach Osborne used to run me if I ran out of bounds instead of lowering my shoulder. I don't know if I'll ask our guys to do that or not, but I want everybody on the team to know they're tough. Nebraska football used to be built on being physical, being tough, and working harder than the other team. And there's some pieces that have been missing here that we're going to try to get back.
Scott Maverickson with Husker Online. You guys got a really good pass rusher today in Caleb Tanner. How big of an emphasis was that in your defensive recruiting mindset going in?
Yeah, I think watching from afar, Nebraska tried to transition to a 3-4 type scheme last year. I'm not sure all the personnel really fit or didn't have time to develop into a fit for that scheme. We need outside pass rushers. Caleb's a guy that can rush the passer from the outside, but he's also athletic enough to drop into space and make plays in space. We had a kid like that in Shaquem Griffin where we just coached, and we were looking forward to having that kind of dynamic player here, and I hope we got it.
Coach, you meant Aaron starts in lane of 10. You mentioned Ryan Held earlier. It felt like every time you turned around, he was in a different state with a different kid this period. What makes him so strong on the recruiting trail?
I think his best asset is there's a lot of loose marbles floating around in his head. He's right back there. There's nobody that I've been around that's more diligent, more passionate about recruiting and getting the right players on your team. Anything I ask him, he's going to do it, and he's going to do it in the best interest of the football team. And it's important to have guys like that in your program and on your staff. So a lot of the kids we're signing today, Ryan Held was a big part of getting them.
Coach Dan Bennett, or Sharp Bennett.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right, boss. You got a ton of experience between development's important to you. How how much is your experience up in terms of you know what it takes to develop versus if you're evaluating a kid, he's got to learn your system too. Like, how do you gauge whether a kid is developing versus him just trying to learn your protocol?
Well, generally, Damon, in when you watch all this stuff going on signing day, I think a lot of programs are just trying to recruit, get the best player they can, and throw them on the field. We want to recruit kids with upside, with character, with intelligence that can learn our system and put them into our program and develop them. Zach Duvall is as good as I've ever seen at developing players. Our staff is as good as I've been around at developing players. Our schemes aren't that hard to learn, so it's got more to do with how mature a kid is and how professional he is when he gets here and how hard he works. And I think we recruited a lot of guys that fit our scheme, a lot of guys that have the upside to be really good in what we're going to ask them to do, and a lot of guys with the character and work ethic to come in and get it done. And when you recruit those kind of kids, they're going to learn what you want them to do and be good players in the end.
Hey, Scott, talking to you, All-Star. A bunch of the guys you signed were here that first weekend after the dead period. So how important was the dead period over Christmas for identifying and getting guys to campus that first weekend after?
You know, it was important for us as a staff because we finally got a little time to sit back and evaluate and see where we were. It was kind of breakneck in the first couple weeks, those weeks in December when we were trying to get kids in. We had to be real careful. One of the challenges that we had is you get a limited number of official visits, and the last staff that was here had used half of them or a little more than half of them. So we had to bat at a really high percentage to fill our class. So we were real careful not to bring in kids where we thought it was just a visit. We had to feel good about our chances of getting them before we brought them in. So I think we finished the class with 2 extra visits in case we need one down the road. But we did really well with the kids that were on campus. I think that says a lot about what Nebraska is, the facilities, the people, and our coaching staff's relationship with kids. I don't know the math, but we got about 5 out of every 7 kids that came in to visit, I would guess. And we really needed to do that in order to fill the class because of the limited number of official visits.
Scott, you said 5 JUCOs. From what you've been able to learn, why did Nebraska not take JUCOs the last 3 years? Or is there something internally that was slowing that process down that made it harder to get JUCO guys here the last few years?
You know, I can't say exactly why it didn't happen for the last few years. All I can say is that we're going to sit down with Bill and the rest of the administration and make sure that the processes are in place so the football program can take the right athletes once it identifies them and be able to get them on a visit and get them into school. And I think Bill is going to help us with that. It's not just the right athlete, it's the right kid. You know, there's a lot of kids that come from high school or junior college that might not have the character or the ability to function in a college environment. We're not going to recruit those guys, but there's a lot of players in high school and junior college that will flourish at the college level, and we want the ability we want to have the ability to take those kids if they're available to us.
Scott, the spring game sold out today, 85,000. That's a record. What's your reaction to the interest in this red-white scrimmage?
A lot of people say they have the best fans in the country. I think selling out a spring game in 3 days kind of puts that argument to bed. I'm so excited that the fan base is as fired up as it is. I'm anxious for the fan base to get to know these new coaches. We have some unbelievable men on our coaching staff. I'm anxious for the fan base to watch the improvement that needs to happen. It's going to be a process for us, but I think by the time spring ball finishes up with the spring game, we'll be quite a ways down that road. Can't believe there's going to be 85,000 for a spring game, but that's Nebraska, so go Big Red.
Hey, Scott, Sam King from the Omaha World Herald. You talked about wanting to sign the best players you could. As it turns out, a lot of those guys were offensive skill players. So 3 running backs, and a whole bunch of tight ends and wide receivers. What do you, that group collectively, how much can they help make over and sort of overhaul the offense from what it used to be to what you want?
Well, part of it's a fit thing. You know, we wanted to go out and recruit kids that we thought fit into our scheme, and I've been recruiting to this scheme for a while and kind of have an idea of what fits and what's going to work in the scheme. You say 3 running backs. Miles Jones is going to be a versatile guy for us. He's going to be a guy that can play outside, play inside in the slot, or play in the backfield. Those guys have thrived in our system, from the DeAnthony Thomas, Josh Huff, Kenyon Barner mold to Otis Anderson in Orlando. That's how we see him. Justin McGriff's a guy with a ton of talent and upside that'll probably start outside but eventually might grow into a tight end. In general, we got to go outside of the state a lot of times to recruit speed. There's going to be some speed in the state, like Damon when he came out, Amon Green when he came out. There's going to be plenty of guys from the state, but skill players, we definitely wanted to add to the depth and talent level at those positions, and we knew a lot of those kids from recruiting down in Florida and feel great about the ones we got.
What do you think of the reception? Are you getting the guys, the speedy guys that you want? You feel confident you can get those players?
Yeah, I think the perception is out there is that those kids won't come here. Our staff had 6 weeks to work, and we got the ones we needed. You don't have to get them all; you have to get the right ones, and I think we did.
Scott, does weather matter anymore? You have to talk kids into, about snow.
You know what we have to talk kids about is kids in Florida and Texas and other places, what their perception of Lincoln, Nebraska is. I think the perception out there is this is a football stadium in the middle of a cornfield and it's always cold. And I can't tell you how many kids, when I met with them on Sundays after their official visits, told me this is nothing like I thought it was going to be like. So it's going to be important for us to get kids to campus. But Lincoln, Nebraska is no colder than a lot of schools in the Big Ten. In fact, it's warmer than a lot of schools in the Big Ten, and kids are going there. There's no reason we can't get them.
You were gone for a while. What is the Haymarket, Pinnacle Bank, all this that's been built up since you were, here on a regular basis? What's your impression?
I think Lincoln's always been a great town, but I love the improvements that have been made. This is a great place to go to college to me because it's not a tiny little college town where there's nothing but the college. There's plenty to do here. It's also not such a big city that you kind of get lost in the mix. So this is the ideal size, as far as I'm concerned, of a place for a kid to go and be able to do what he wants to do, but also focus on what's important, and that's football and academics.
Scott, you had mentioned that there wasn't as much drama maybe across the nation today with signing day. Do you think that this is the new normal with the number of recruits signing in February, and will that at all maybe, will some recruits maybe have second thoughts because after the December period, it seemed like there were a lot of assistants that moved on after they had recruited for the previous school. Do you think that maybe guys want to wait, given that was the case?
I think there might be a lot of reasons they wait. I think everybody was trying to find their way this year and wasn't sure how it was going to play out. I think more kids probably ended up signing in December than most of us thought that would sign in December. About 90% or 91% I read of the Power 5 spots were filled after December. That's a lot higher than I thought it was going to be. And it wouldn't surprise me if next year it was less than that, because there were a lot of good players left out there, and there's quite a few schools, particularly in our conference, that were full or about full and didn't have that many spots to give those kids. So I think everybody was feeling it out this year, and we'll see going forward how many kids sign in December and how many wait.
Coach, you could get into body types later with your guys up front. I know how you like to play. You like to win up front. You got numbers. How do you think you can transition those guys into playing at the tempo and the number of snaps that you want to play at in just a short amount of time?
Yeah, well, it's going to be a process. I like the talent that we have up front. I really do. I like the body types and the size. We got to change their bodies. The Nebraska that I knew, and the strength and conditioning and what was expected of them and what kids look like physically, that's not really what we're walking back into, but that's what Zach Duvall's here for. And I think we got guys on the team that can be great offensive linemen, but we got to go to work in the weight room. We got to cut our body fat. We got to eat right. We got to get stronger, and we got to get in better shape.
Scott, put this class in perspective. The rating services, recruiting services have you 23 to 25. How good is this class overall?
Yeah, I don't really care about the ranking. It matters on one day, and that's today. I'm not here to win February. I'm here to try to win football games in the fall.
Scott, your Florida experience clearly helped in this class. Going undefeated down there surely helped. important going forward, or was this kind of an exceptional year based on, how much time you spent down there?
No, I think we're going to continue to get kids from down there. We got a lot of coaches that are used to recruiting Florida that have a lot of relationships with kids and high school coaches in the state of Florida. Nebraska had some great players from Florida. I played with Tommy and Shevin and Tyrone Williams and guys like that were from Florida. I heard a lot of people say they didn't know if we could get those kids to come to Lincoln, Nebraska. And, looking at this class with 7 or 8 from Florida and 4 from California, Alabama, Georgia, Kansas, Connecticut, kids are going to come here if we can get them on campus and let them see what we're building. And I think our relationships in the state of Florida will continue to help us, but we're going to go everywhere and get the right kids.
Scott, how much have you gotten to know the roster that was already here? And I guess how eager are you to get to this next phase of kind of learning about your team more since you've been all over the place?
We can't wait. Our whole coaching staff, we're in this business because the most rewarding part is the relationships with players and helping them. Through this first month and a half or however long we've been on the job, we haven't had a chance to spend as much time with our guys as we want to. My staff needs time off. We haven't had a second to breathe since July. So next week the offensive staff's going to take a week and defense is going to stay in the office, and the following week defense is going out and offense will be in the office. But I know all of us, myself included, are looking forward to being around the guys, learning about them, developing relationships, and trying to help them get better.
How'd you guys find Casey Rogers?
Mike Dawson really was the lead guy on Casey. He was a lacrosse player from Syracuse. His dad is a lacrosse coach, actually. He went to a prep school for a year out of high school and really got bigger and got good as a football player. And he's kind of a tough Northeast guy. We've had a few of those around here in the past, and looking forward to seeing what he can look like once he gets in this program and with Zach.
From the halftime of the basketball game in December to selling out the spring game today, and the reception that you've received when you've gone around the state to visit schools, what's your perception of all that's gone on over the last 2 months and the way the staff and you have been received?
Well, the reception for me has been great. That's why I mentioned I can't wait for the state to get to know my staff, because these are great people. They're great human beings. They're great coaches. And we're going to send a bunch of them to Lincoln tonight to meet some of the fans. This week we're sending them out to the rest of the state so they can get to know some of these guys. The job that they've done in the last 2 months, I don't know if it's ever been done in college football, and I don't know if it'll be done again. It's hard to go undefeated, and this staff pulled that off. They pulled it off after taking over a team that was 0-12 2 years before. You don't see anybody that takes another job and goes back and coaches a game. In fact, a lot of the bowl games that went on, the teams that lost coaches got whipped in the bowl game. And our guys to a man wanted to go back and help those kids in Florida win a football game. Then to win it was pretty special. And to do all that while taking a class that I think, not that I pay attention, but was ranked 94th or something when we got here, up to a top 25 or 20 class. It's unprecedented what these guys have done, and really it's been less me than the group of 10 guys that are working in the football office, and I can't wait to watch what they can accomplish here.
Hey Scott, Andy Kennedy from KETV in Omaha. And when you look at these, the list of guys, 2 dozen or so guys that you got, is there a characteristic or maybe a personality trait that is more common in most of these guys? Maybe not every guy, but maybe some of these guys have in common with each other that kind of drew you to them?
I think if I had to pick a couple things, they're competitors. I want competitors. I want guys that love football. But I'm also really proud of who these kids are. I think our staff approaches recruiting from the perspective that we're going to be genuine and honest. We're not going to be used car salesmen and lie and cheat and steal and blow a kid's phone up to get them. And more than anything, I think that helps us get the right kind of kid, the kid that doesn't need to have all that happen to him to pick a school. Picking Nebraska isn't an easy decision, especially for a kid from Florida or Georgia, Alabama. So the kids that are going to come here and choose Lincoln, Nebraska, and choose this program are probably choosing it because they want to come be around good people and go to work. And I think that's the type of kid that we got.
Coach Phil Bergman, KLK and Lincoln. Noah Vedril's Wahoo native, went down to UCF and following you back up here. Just talk about that relationship you built with him and why he decided to transfer up here after freshman year.
Nice socks, by the way. Noah's a kid from just north. I've hunted around Ceresco and Wahoo a lot. I played with Matt Turman, who's his mom's brother, and John and Mark Vedril, who are his dad's brothers. So I've known both families for a long time. Noah kind of chose to come down to Orlando to play for us and to play for me. We were really careful when we left UCF not to talk to any kids about coming here. In fact, my message to them was stay here and continue to make this place great and give this new coaching staff every opportunity. Noah kind of wanted to be back. I think part of it was him wanting to come home, and he wants to be a coach someday, and I think he wanted to be around us. And, hey, we're happy to have him. He did unbelievable things as a true freshman for us down there, and he's going to have to sit out a year, but we're looking forward to what he can do in the future.
Hey, Scott, building on your last comment there about guys maybe leaving UCF, there's a proposal out there about transfers becoming immediately eligible if the coach leaves. They can't go where the coach took his new job, but if he resigns or is fired, the kids are eligible to play immediately wherever they would go. I guess, what do you think of that proposal?
I'm all for giving the players more freedom and more ability. Coaches can take better opportunities and move on. Players are kind of locked in, but you also can't upset the balance and the nature of college football. And I think there's been some proposals even to make transfers free and you never have to sit out. My opinion, that would be a disaster. You'd have coaches from other schools on our campus recruiting our guys, and probably vice versa. If there was a great player at South Dakota State like the tight end this year and he had a year left and he could transfer without penalty, I'd sure as heck send somebody up to talk to him. I think that can get messy and ugly. If they can figure it out, if a coach leaves, I understand, because kids commit to play for a school, but they also commit to play for a coach, and that changes things. The thing that's going to be interesting is if ADs start making coaching changes after the first signing day, and kids that have signed at that school already. I think that once that happens, it'll really probably usher in some conversation about changing some of those rules.
Scott, the spring game was moved a week back, April 21st. Why'd you do that, and what are your goals as you head into spring football?
Before, they did half of their spring practice before spring break and half after. If you've never seen a college kid when they come back from spring break, I don't think that's really ideal for training and getting the team better. We're going to have one practice before spring break just to try to get the kids familiar with what we're doing, and then we're going to come back and go to work.
And the goals you're kind of looking at for spring football, what are you looking to do?
Our goal is going to be simple. It's going to be to get better, day by day, to get better. And that means waking up every day and being better than you were the day before. Any challenge that comes in front of you, you got to conquer it and overcome it. Put your head on the pillow and get ready to get up and do it again the next day. We got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of work to do in the weight room. We got a lot of work to do in the classroom and on the field. But I know we have a coaching staff that knows the direction that they need to take this team, and a lot of kids that are hungry and excited about the change. So this is going to be a process, but can't wait to get started on the first steps.
Any other roster departures that you're aware of? Talk to us about last week.
No, nothing that I'm aware of right now. I know there's some kids that are battling a little bit of injury, and we'll see how that goes as spring ball approaches. And inevitably there's a little bit of attrition, but, hey, we don't want that. We want to keep everybody that we can and make them as good as we can make them.
And I wanted to ask about Moses Bryant. He's walking on here. Did that surprise you? He had opportunities to play elsewhere. What does it say about him?
I can't comment on that right now, so for rules reasons. Right, G? Yeah.
So do you take time off like your assistants?
I'm going to get a little time off, yeah. It's been hard for me because my wife and my newborn son are still in Orlando. Thank goodness for FaceTime. Otherwise, I'd be missing the first few months of his life. This is an opportunity that I couldn't turn down, and our staff felt the same way, but transitions are always hard, and I'm going to get back down to Orlando for part of next week to see my family.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
Thanks.